Olivia Nottebohm, COO of Box, and Erik Charles, fractional CMO and CRO at HANA Operators and former CMO. Exactly. Welcome. Our community is super excited. Can't wait to get into this fireside chat. How are you doing?
I am doing well. I'm glad to say we all made it in here on time.
Yeah, Olivia, what's new with Box? We're seeing it making a lot of waves in all of the communities.
First, it's just lovely to be here. So thank you for inviting me on, Julia, and look forward to chatting with you, Erik. Hi, everyone.
All right. Are
Erik,
you doing it? Do you want to do intros or shall I take it on, Julia?
take it on, Erik.
All right, we'll make this quick. My name is Erik Charles, former CMO of Exactly, currently working in fractional work and board advisory work. But actually, on Olivia's space, I got to say I've been a customer of Box since probably almost the very beginning, switching over to it from certain other systems and platforms. And my favorite, I think, Box memory actually is when my trusted Mac truly had a hard drive completely die, which Apple was not used to. And the person was so concerned. He's like, "What did you lose?" I said, "Nothing. Everything I do is either admittedly an online email system or all files are backed up on Box. So I just need you to put in a new drive and I'm good to go." Now, that is the most basic use of the technology that the company's been providing. I'm realizing this, which is not what we're talking to. So, to quickly introduce, I get the privilege of being able to talk to Olivia for the next, I don't know, 25 minutes or so. She's the COO at Box. She handles the global go-to-market organization, also which includes partnerships, marketing, sales, and customer success. That should be a whole different conversation we should have at some point of how do you combine all those and manage that aspect in that sense. She's a member of the board of directors over at Appfolio and Lightmatter, and BA in econ from Harvard and an MBA from Stanford. So on that side, I have to say go Cardinal, just because Stanford was my undergraduate alma mater. But to jump right into this, our conversation is all about becoming AI first. I think our fancy title we came up with this was redesigning the organization for agentic advantage, which sounds really confusing to a lot of people. So I thought I'd let you, and I had the opportunity to read a great white paper that you participated in, and I enjoyed that. But if what did I miss in the intro, or how do you want to jump into this?
Well, first of all, thank you. Thanks for the intro. Nice to be with you today. I'll just jump in. I mean, if the conversation's on AI first, thanks for reading the white paper. Erin and I co-wrote that, and we also used AI, so it's good to like do it on yourselves when you're creating something. So we think about AI first having five key principles. The one is that you have AI as a capability expander, which is to say the humans are doing the work, but really, at least in this first evolution of AI first, it's all about AI enabling you to do things you've never thought possible. The second is that there's this human to AI collaboration. So you always want a human to be part of the decision making. The third is AI native design, right? So as you go to think about processes that you're now going to execute in an AI first world, how do you actually start with a blank canvas, right? And think afresh, given what you know is possible with AI. And obviously that's constantly changing day by day, but at least having that mindset. And then the fourth is data. Data is the strategic asset of all of this. It's like garbage in, garbage out. That's like an old saying in tech land, but still applies in the land of agents. And then, of course, the last is trust and governance. In all of this flurry of using AI and agents and all that we think we can do, if we start having data leakage and all of that, we have much bigger problems on our hands.
I was at an interesting talk in actually Salt Lake City a couple of weeks ago, and I had a professor from BYU who talked about, and it was an AI panel, and he just jumped in and said, "Oh yeah, and by the way, quantum computing is getting really close, and that's going to completely shift the AI landscape in and of itself once it happens." Now, his job is to be a futurist, and there's certain things we're always talking about what's coming next. I want to ask you, what's your current favorite use of AI today in the workplace?
Honestly, we have so many. We do box on box here
Mhm.
at Box, not surprisingly. So we basically have 1,000 flowers blooming. So anyone can ask to create an agent, and then it goes for some, bit of ratification, make sure that it's all wired up correctly, and then we publish it out, and then it's available to anyone who wants to use it. But an example would be, okay, someone's going in to prepare for a customer meeting. You saw some of that in the previous one, but now this is all of the content that you have on Box. So it's secure and trusted. We have integrations into
Mm.
Salesforce, all of that. So we call that our discovery agent, but then we also have a messaging agent. And of course, you're uploading all of the information about Box, our value proposition, all of our product specs, all of our positioning. And then, auto magically you have outreach written for you. Now we're still trying
Mhm.
to keep humans in the loop on that to quality check it, but that's another great one we're using. And then another one that's been a real hit with our professional services team is our RFP responder agent.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah. So I was once a consultant. Boy, would I have loved to have an agent write all my proposals.
So are you using that if you're, and you can just say next question. Are you, because I always said the worst RFPs I ever dealt with, and even some companies I advise, were not actual RFPs. It was analyst RFPs, as in, say,
Ah,
one of the big analyst firms is reviewing your space, and they send you. I found a folder in a backup drive that said, and it was just my. I'll admit, my folder was RFPs from hell, questions and answers, and I'd save them that way. Are you trusting that for analysts?
honestly, yes, we just keep humans in the loop. So before
Mhm.
anything gets sent out, someone looks it over and makes sure that all of the content is okay. But yeah, I mean, at
Mhm.
this point, I mean, quantum computing aside, those agents are performing as good as a human.
You mentioned in your process when someone creates an agent and you quickly hit the validation check phase before
Yeah.
we let this out in the public. What does that phase look like? I mean, again, I'm a company. I want to be AI first. Hold it. Yeah. I've got some smart people who can create agents. Now, what's that check phase?
Yeah, so okay, here's what we're solving for from a business perspective. One is we don't actually want 1,000, like thousands and thousands of agents, because we think that'll be, frankly, just confusing and hard for people to execute on. And so we love the innovation, so everyone's coming in with their ideas. But we do want to have some sort of like publishing mechanism, which is what we do. Now, we don't overly constrain it. We have over 50 agents at work in our go-to-market teams today. But there is a step where it's like, what is the process? Are they pulling data that's appropriate, frankly? Would they be more powerful if they could have access to additional data, right? And then who are we provisioning it to? So, all our SDRs get access to this agent, or our people team gets access to this agent, but no one else should, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And then, not that you glossed over it, but one of the key things, because you talked about as one of the key pillars, is cleanliness of data. And
Yes,
I've
yes.
been playing with that game for a while. Spent a lot of time in the sales compensation space, and even like, pulling. So, in that case, I first started with survey data for my clients in the old days.
Hmm.
And then I remember using CompuStat as a source for
Yeah.
company performance data.
Yep.
You know, now we can get so much stuff slung in here. And I'll freely admit, I will admit, my name is Eric Charles. I use AI regularly, and I actually put it in for any of the work I do for companies I'm advising. I've actually started putting in a notation. Here is how I used AI in
Mm.
generating this report. Sometimes it's just like I let the AI summarize a bunch of stuff. Sometimes it summarizes things I've written that I'm like, I really don't want to read my writings because I find things that have been published in major things that have typos that somehow snuck through. But, how are you checking the data? What is the data cleansing or validation that you follow?
This is the crux, honestly, of the whole thing, right? Because, and I think that this is a bit of the misfires that we saw early on, right? Which was, it wasn't so much that Yes, it was a combined two failure modes. One, agents had access to information they probably shouldn't have had access to, and that kind of caused alarms. But then also they realized that the agent didn't delineate between version 23 and version 25, right?
Hmm.
Because they didn't know whether it was the later timestamp or the previous timestamp, or which was the data that should be kind of the ground truth that they should be using, right?
Hmm.
So we obviously live and breathe unstructured data. That's our focus. What I mean by that is, your Google document, an Excel spreadsheet counts as well, a PDF, a photograph, a video, all of that. We are constantly creating ways in which people can curate the data. So on Box, we have something called a hub. You can put as many files as you want in that hub. And if you have a working team or a functional team, we have a go-to-market hub, and we have a sales hub, and we have a pricing hub, and you can imagine how this goes. But the beauty is we're not replicating all of those documents. It's just anchoring back into the original document, so you're not causing spaghetti in your overall environment. But the important thing is there is the ability to curate. Right. So you're putting in the product spec that you want to reference, or you're putting in the customer information that you want that's relevant to what you're working on. And I do think that in the world of AI, there needs to be some sort of curation step.
Yeah, I think curation, and I'm going to emphasize the at least for fit in certain, I'll call it customer facing, but outside of the company facing, almost anything facing. I do think there's going to be a place for that caveat of here's where I used it and
Right.
here's where I didn't, just for the people that are still having some questions.
But also, less people think this is a heavy lift. Like this is
Mhm.
if you want your agent to write a marketing blog for you. Okay, well, you better load in the right content for them to be working on, even if it's 1,000 documents, right? That's okay.
Right,
Put that in a hub. Different than we have customers who do insurance claims, and they process 10,000 insurance claims per week, and that's just the inbound flow. There's not a curation in the sense that, like, whatever they receive, we're doing metadata extraction on, we're running a
right,
workflow based on what's in that metadata, and then it progresses through.
right. Uh, how do you do? It's funny because you mentioned pricing. Um, and obviously you've got your internal price books, and from my experience, it's like, here's the price you're allowed to give. Here's the discount your manager can approve, your director can approve, the vice president can approve. Are you using the agent to help? Like if I'm a rep and I'm involved in a pricing negotiation, enterprise company is like, all right, here's the price book, but please note 90% of the time this is where we end up at, and so you better get in front of
We
the
don't
VP now.
expose that to our
Yeah. Oh,
reps.
not okay.
That's a kind of choose your own adventure. They'll find the floor eventually if they work hard
Right.
enough, but we don't tell them what it is.
Yeah. Well, because I was asked, one of my questions that I see bandied about is at what point, will sales be replaced by AI? And my response is usually when procurement is purely AI. If the entire buying, if I'm no longer negotiating with executives and just negotiating with the procurement AI, I should probably have my own bot to represent me, and they can both go at light speed and come to that optimal decision point from grad school statistics.
Yeah, I believe we just went through Boxworks. We just had thousands of customers in town and hundreds of partners. And, we had our dinners and our cruises in the bay and all of that. It still comes down to relationships and who people
Yeah.
want to work through. I think that is the human part of sales that is irreplaceable.
Yeah.
And so you can be better prepared for meetings. Some agent can do your slide deck,
Right.
but you have to still be able to articulate the value proposition and why it's good to work with you as a company and why you're always going to be there to answer the phone, all of that. I guess if we fast forward and agents are talking to agents, all of that gets, you know, obscured. But for the
Yeah.
here and now, I think humans matter a lot, and that relationship is pivotal.
Do your partners have access to some of your agents?
For sure. I mean, most of our partners are on Box, right? So
Uh-huh.
that's important because they need to be kind of drinking the champagne that they're helping sell. So absolutely, yeah, they have access to Box, they leverage Box, they spin up agents, all of that.
Okay. How about the cost factor? As more and more agents and different systems, I'll use Salesforce as an example since they have publicly stated that, to use their agents, there's going to be I feel like we're back to the cell phone minutes age,
Yeah,
as
they
opposed
just
to
published flex credits. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
So how does an AI first company control their costs? I have this vision, like you've said, you've got all these agents people are spinning up. That's gotta somewhere, someone in finance, the office of the controller is going, oh my gosh, we spent how much last week?
Yeah, I mean, this is where, I mean, not to date myself, but I do feel like we're on the maturity curve of cloud, right?
Mhm.
Where when Amazon made that market, they realized, and I think the same is true now, that actually unpredictability is more scary, at least for the enterprise, right? And so that's why they came up with the concept of reserved instances, all of that. Now, I worked at Google Cloud. We entered the market 7 years later. We had 0% market share, but 7 years into that journey, people were pissed about paying for RIs that they were not using, right?
Right.
Gone were the days of I want predictability. And now they're like, I want to pay only for what I use. And that was our wedge into the market. We came out with down to per second billing of compute, which was a little overkill, I have to be honest. But it was like, okay, you've dialed it in, you have pattern recognition, you understand, you've got your budgeting figured out. Like, great, you're only going to pay for what you use for. And we might throttle you if you ask us to throttle you, but otherwise we're just going to let it run and we'll send you the bill. Right. We're just not there yet with AI. I think people are terrified, frankly, of that potentially happening in their environment and with their budgeting and all of that. So I do predict that people will buy in kind of like packaged amounts, right?
Hmm.
I see it in the contracts coming in, which is, this is how many API calls, we call them AI units. This is how many AI units we want to consume. It's in the millions and millions and millions, obviously, right, per month. But then cap me at this and only charge me for this and then throttle me there. So
Yeah.
people do need to still navigate that.
So with all this, going back to an AI first company, where would you say Box is right now in terms of on the journey versus optimal? And what is optimal? And again, optimal based on what we can see,
Yeah. Yeah.
art of the
I mean,
possible.
I feel like there's always more to be done, right?
Yeah.
Especially in this world, because AI is changing so quickly. The change management can't possibly keep up, right? So I would say we're actually quite far along. We define the use of AI in 3 stages. The first stage is like you're just answering a question, right?
Hmm.
You're asking them to retrieve some sort of answer to a question that you have. The second is you're asking them to do a task, right? It's finite. It's obviously they are provided an objective, right? But it feels more almost like a predictable task. And then the third is like it's an entire workflow, right? And in the RFP example I gave you, it is actually an entire workflow. Like it's this beautiful thing where the RFP comes in, the metadata is extracted out, we capture all the key fields, what are the scopes, what are the deliverables, what are the timelines, right? And then actually we use our DocGen functionality to create the response to the RFP. Then you have human in the loop, they check it over, and then you send it out for signature on Box Sign.
Hmm.
That's awesome, right? Of course, all of our processes do not run that way. So in the sense of like we've tasted stage 3, we've executed stage 3, but it's not universally true and it's not every single process.
Is there a process that you're willing to admit to that you backed away from? You thought, hold it, I don't think we're ready to go AI first on this one yet.
Well, so what we've done is actually map all the go-to-market processes and
Hmm.
then decided, both from a change management and from a building of agents, okay, we're not going to tackle all of these at once, right?
Right.
So we went with we literally have a 2x2, which is embarrassingly dark to admit, but it's,
Hey, it's required. It's required. I
right.
should have.
But
If I ever got a tattoo, it started getting ink. I think a two by
right.
two box would have to be on there somewhere.
Right. Right. So it's, degree of impact and amount of effort required, right? And so things like our discovery agent for sales, okay, well, we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sellers out there. Boy, that's going to have fast impact quickly, right? And so we almost took like a Maslow's hierarchy to it, also because
Hmm.
we were testing into it. right? So, and then more some of the sensitive stuff that we haven't quite figured out, both where we stand on the matter, like someone writing someone else's performance review. Like, we've drawn a hard line there. Like an AI agent shouldn't be writing someone else's performance review. But so I think that's like kind of how we think about it, at least.
Um, who should be scared for their job as we go AI first? And an AI, I mean, let's say I'm applying for a job at an AI first company, or I'm at a company that says we're going AI first. Who should be paranoid, and how can they protect themselves? And again, I'm thinking about, I'll use Salesforce again. Mark talking about dropping 4,000 CS people thanks to AI, or 4,000 CS roles. Let's say CS roles. I don't want to misquote there or miss cite.
Yeah.
So who should be on edge?
Think so. I mean, my genuine belief is that there's always more code to write. There are always more customers to see. There's always a
Mhm.
better, deeper understanding of how we could be serving our customers, reaching out to prospects. Um, so it might slow down some future hiring. I don't
Mhm.
see any scenario where people are being exited, to be totally honest. I think there's like
Mhm.
a very real thing, and everyone's heard it 1,000 times now, that the people should just learn how to use AI, right? Because the people
Yeah.
who will have a tougher time going forward will be the people who don't know how to use AI, or somehow threatened by it, right? And then they
Yeah.
don't embrace it and try new things and all of that. So I think it's more that than anything else, personally. But I'm an
Yeah.
optimist, so.
Oh, it's funny. I play around with things. I had a company I was advising. They asked me to take a look at something. I said, "Well, I just asked three different AIs the exact same question to see if they even came up with your company as an answer, and here's the results." So that I mean, and it was a small
Yeah.
go-to-market thing. We were talking about, AI search optimization as opposed to search engine optimization. And I said, well, when I ask the agent, the systems, not agents, the systems, this is their answers.
And
And
we're in this. Look, we are doing LLM marketing. It's
yeah.
very, very real. Yeah, people are using
Any huge successes there? Sorry, just to go sideways, but I love
Uh,
that.
we're early in that, but we recognize that gone are it's just the same arc, right? Like CIOs used to read magazines. They don't do that. They went to look on the
Mhm.
websites, and so your website had to be perfect, and the Google search had to be right. And now it's like, well, actually, what matters is what ChatGPT tells them when they ask them, right? And so
Right.
actually, like creating the content so these LLMs pick it up is much more important than it ever has been before.
What would you tell a growing company, say SMB moving into the mid market? So they're at that beautiful, let's say, in the tech space, say past the 25 million in ARR stage. What should they be doing to get the first steps to be going agent first? They're ready to hire a couple extra people. They've got their basic stuff. They know they've got some product market fit, maybe one product back to come up with a second product. What should they be doing to be an AI first, AI forward company?
Well, I mean, the beauty of a company at that size, I worked at Notion.
Right.
It was a little bigger than that, but we only had 60 people, when I joined. So
Mm-hmm.
you could just like literally get in a room and
Right.
say, okay, where's the biggest bang for our buck in deploying AI? Because often it's bringing in third-party vendors. Like, obviously we're lucky at Box that we're using Box on Box. But,
Right.
for the most part, people are bringing in third-party vendors. And the security of this really matters. Like it really matters. Like I really think that if you are a company and you serve customers, and by virtue of the AI you leverage, you create breaches or security issues for your customers, and then that is like just an incredible, terrible place to be, right? So I think there has to be a level of seriousness about, okay, what are the applications that we're going to leverage, and what is the diligence that we do on their level of security, right? Do they promise us in our T's and C's that they leverage models that don't train on our data, right? All of these questions that us operators have now learned to ask for are really, really important. So first there has to be that rigor, right? But then
Right.
matching it to okay, what is some low hanging fruit? And I do think the areas of customer success, just like prime, support is
Yeah,
prime, right? Sales much more on the prep than on the actual engagement, right? Whereas with
agreed.
support, you can actually have like self-service agents helping out your customers in a way that is pretty fantastic.
Yeah. Prediction time. What do you see coming in the next? And we're going to keep it to 12 to 18 months. And
Good.
I even think
Any
that's too much.
farther would be
I
crazy.
feel like saying, what do you see before the end of the year, even being announced, released, or somebody who's doing it really well.
So for myself or for the broad society at large, like
Ooh, let's do
at
both.
Box or
Yeah, let's do both. Those are both. Yeah,
okay. Okay.
we
I
can
mean,
stay in the business world. I won't have you,
yes. Oh,
jump
right,
it.
right, sure. I'm business all day long. Yeah, I think for Box ourselves, I think we're just moving a mile a minute, and we will be automating so many
Mhm.
processes, and I'm so excited about. I mean, I literally carry around a list of all the things I wish I could do, but I can't do because we either don't have the resourcing or we don't have the bandwidth. So that
Mhm.
is super exciting that we might be able to do that. I mean, I just had a problem solving with our community leader, right? And as it's like a totally different game. If you can have agents supporting communities, you can do a much better job at community, right? Community engagement as a software company, because this is really important. It's by role, it's by industry, it's by what their care abouts, what are their pain points, right? So that's just an example of like all of a sudden it was only what one person could do. And now we still have that one person, but now it's about all of these things that they can capture and harness to do. I would say in the broader ecosystem, I go to New York and it's just the West Coast is like pretty intense on this topic, right? And I think the rest of the country will take some time, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of technological advances will happen over the next 12 months, but like humans only move so quickly. And so I think there'll be a bit of a lag.
Yeah. I think it's gonna be fun to see the practical applications.
Yeah.
I like how you went down specific examples. I've seen too many announcements on LinkedIn and other places of like, we're now Agentic AI, and I jump into doing what?
Yeah. For what
And
purpose?
yeah, I'm tired of hearing, like it's like it's like we're a cloud company. Are you, or do you just like license some private servers someplace at one point in the old days? So, thank you very much. This was fun. I
Thank
know
you,
we could
Eric.
have gone much longer, and I agree with you. The live meetings, I've been to your box events in the past, and I always liked them. I have to give you points for not only being at the forefront of technology, but citing classics like Maslow and the 2x2 box, which proves that yes, the world has changed and you better get ahead of it, but the stuff you've learned in the past is still applicable. You have to find out how to apply it to the new models that make things a little more efficient, a little smarter, a little quicker. And I think people should have listened to your comments on trust, governance, security, and how important that is. If you're going to do it, because man, you mess it up for one customer and it gets public, you've got issues. So thank you very much for joining me for this one, and thank you, Julia, for inviting us for the talk.
Our pleasure. Sensational session. Thank you so much, Olivia and Eric. And where can our community go to best support you? Olivia, let's start with you. What's next for Box?
Oh, just come visit box.com. We've got our keynote up there. You can watch it. We've got a lot of information about, to Eric's point, practical applications.
Amazing. And Eric, how about you?
If anybody wants to get a hold of me, ericharles.com makes it very easy in the old school way of a website. Happy to work with, always interested in advising companies on where they're on their go-to-market journey and what places do they lack some of the internal skills and knowledge to help out.